Okay, looks like I caught Mike here at just the right moment, didn't I? He's got a great channel. It's called Beyond Science, and you ought to check it out. And I'm just mirroring something that he's got on here that shows another study of the ancient Egyptians and how they seem to have Aryan roots, showing blue eyes, blonde and red hair, wavy hair, and depictions of Greece things, which, of course, I've already through my Bible studies have found out that they're attached to the Greeks from primordial times, and it's all running back and through to the entire Levant area itself, and Babylonians and Sumerians, which also are shown as being blue-eyed, and the Aryan people, and how it was an interfighting of all the somewhat Caucasoid people of the area. No, they weren't that white because they got out in the sun a lot. But yeah, take a look at this information here. It's pretty unique and important.
Hi, it's Mike Chen. What we're going to be talking about in this video is what some people may consider a controversial subject, as with most videos on this channel, but also one worthy of study. And before we start, I'm going to raise this question to everybody. Do we really know, genetically speaking, where ancient Egyptians came from? And the answer is, we have our theories, but not really. We also don't know what exactly they look like. When we try to imagine what ancient Egyptians may have looked like, some of us immediately picture a civilization populated by citizens with dark skin and dark hair, but was that truly the case? At the time when graves of mummies were discovered more than 100 years ago, a general expectation was that the early Egyptians were of Negroid origin. But in our enlightened and technologically advanced era, where we possess greatly enhanced capabilities in forensic science, certain mind-blowing archaeological discoveries and evidences have emerged that are not exactly supportive of the seemingly universal known fact that dynastic Egyptians were exclusively of African origin. All shades of hair were found around the time of ancient Egypt's civilization, from brown to blonde and even auburn and red. Today, these hair colors are found among the people of North Europe and North Africa and are indicative of Caucasian origins. So does this mean that there were fair-skinned, blonde, or red-headed ancient Egyptians prior and during Egypt's dynastic period? There is a theory suggesting that prior to 2000 BC, Egyptians were of Caucasian European ethnicity. This is supported by the physical anthropology of the oldest mummies that have ever been found, the busts and statues of several pharaohs and their wives, the colored wall paintings discovered, and the descriptions provided in historical accounts. As early as 5000 BC, the majority of the Caucasian European occupants of Egypt were believed to have begun abandoning the increasingly warm country and headed to the cooler climates of Europe. Then, after about 1500 BC, the population in the area became increasingly mixed, with the Nubians from the south of Egypt, which explains the typical physical appearance and the genetic
So the
makeup of
Caucoids,
modern-day Egyptians.
yeah,
This theory
they'll
strongly
have to go to
refutes
Greece.
the ideas of Afrocentrism, with the presentation of several archaeological, anthropological, and forensic evidences, three of which I am about to discuss with you now. One of the most famous cases of mummies of ancient Egypt that had red or blonde hair is one of the Ghibeline pre-dynastic mummies, which is housed in the British Museum. Commonly referred to by curators in the public as Ginger, this ancestor from ancient Egypt died more than 5,000 years ago in the late pre-dynastic period, around 3400 BC or earlier. His mummified body was found in a cemetery at Ghibeline, Egypt, with his toes and fingernails perfectly preserved.
Blonde
he was
hair.
given the nickname of Ginger because of his golden curly hair, which interestingly looks similar to the curly locks often seen on Greek and Roman
It
sculptures. And
does.
although his body is stained from buried in the sand for more than 5,000 years, this Egyptian ancestor looked like he once had yellowish white skin. Another example of uncovered red-haired mummies from ancient Egypt are the ones found among thousands of other mummies by a group of archaeologists in the Fagal Gamus graveyard in the south of Cairo. Archaeologists from Brigham Young University in Utah have been excavating that cemetery for about 30 years, and they have established that many of the mummies they have found date back to 30 BC, which is around the time when the Roman or Byzantine Empire ruled Egypt. Researchers reached the conclusion that there were more than 1 million bodies within the cemetery, and it was revealed that the cemetery was not intended for royalty, but for the common people. There were many interesting discoveries that were uncovered in the excavation of this ancient cemetery in the analysis of the mummies found buried in the area. And one of them is the observation that the mummies appear to be clustered together according to their hair color. They found blonde-haired mummies in one area, while another area was filled with red-haired ones. This led to the overall impression that the clusters of mummies buried by hair color in the graveyard could be indicative that these people once belonged in the same family groups and therefore were related with each other. This also speaks
Huh.
volumes of the possibility that a small but significant part of ancient Egypt's population were red-haired or blonde-haired individuals. The
Looks
last
like
case
it.
of red-haired Egyptian mummies we will be discussing is the preserved body of Ramses II, who is arguably the most famous of all the pharaohs of ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Ramses II ruled as a pharaoh of the 19th dynasty between 1279 to 1213 BC. It is believed to be the one who reigned when the children of Israel were liberated through the prophet Moses. In
Yeah.
1975, the Egyptian government tasked French scientists to attempt the
Hmm.
preservation of Ramses' mummy. This
Blonde.
opened an opportunity for
Look at
researchers to
that Roman
determine his
nose.
age, body condition, health, diet, and even his racial
Skinny
affinities.
Roman
There were
nose.
those who were of the opinion that Ramses II was black. However, according to the study conducted by Professor P.F. Scaldi and his research team, microscopic examinations of the pharaoh's hair roots show that his hair had natural red pigments, which meant that in his younger years, Ramses II was a redhead. Moreover, it was
Oh.
also determined that Ramses had wavy hair, and a combination of these features meant that the pharaoh was fair-skinned. While there had
Ah.
been enough evidence for some experts to conclude that some ancient Egyptians were blonde or red-haired, there are still many researchers who believe that there were no ancient Egyptians whose natural hair weren't dark brown or black. Some of these skeptics argue that mummies found with light-colored strands of hair can be explained by the effects of the mummification process itself. And so, to find a definitive answer to this intriguing question about the effects of the mummification process on human hair, Dr. Jeanette Davey from the Victoria Institute of Forensic Medicine in Australia decided to conduct experiments on 16 hair samples from men and women aged between 4 and 92 years old. Most of the hair samples were dark colored, but for comparison, one of the sample strands was gray, while another one was fair. There was also one strand with henna on it. Davey and her colleague, retired industrial chemist Alan Elliott, also prepared some powder of synthetic natron for their experiments. Natron was a type of salt that was applied on the bodies during the process of mummification to dry them out. It has also been linked to the supposed change in hair color of the human remains. Davey and Elliott covered the hair samples in synthetic natron for 40 days, the same amount of time believed to be required back in ancient times to dry out the human body. When the 40-day period had passed, the samples were removed from the salty powder, and after undergoing microscopic analysis, it was determined that there was no change in the color of the hair samples at all. For Dr. Davey, the result of her experiment is convincing enough to say that fair-haired Egyptians did exist in ancient Egypt. It's just that finding fair-haired Egyptian mummies has so far been a very rare occurrence. Some ancient Egyptians could have been blue-eyed blondes or redheads, and while the country during those times was not as multicultural as several parts of the world are today, there were certainly a variety of racial mixes that made the existence of fair-skinned Egyptians possible. Now, is this discovery particularly earth-shattering? Well, it depends on which vantage point you are analyzing the evidence from. It remains a fact that a majority of Egyptians today are dark-haired and dark-skinned. These archaeological, anthropological, and forensic evidences merely attest to a not-so-implausible reality that at some point in its ancient history, there were a portion of people in Egypt who were red, were blonde-haired, and fair-skinned. I mean, in our modern world, individuals of different race and ethnicities encounter and mingle with each other like in natural habitats. So is it really that surprising that our ancestors did the same thousands of years ago? Let me know what you guys
No,
think
it's
in the
not.
comments below.
Except for
Thank you all so
racists,
much
it's
for
hard
watching
to
this video.
understand. Let's check this one more time. What's he say right here?
One of the most famous cases of mummies of ancient Egypt that had red or blonde hair is one of the Gibelline pre-dynastic mummies, which is housed in the British Museum. Commonly referred to by curators in the public as Ginger, this ancestor from ancient Egypt died more than 5,000 years ago in the late pre-dynastic period, around 3400 BC or earlier. His mummified
He's
body
got
was
blonde
found in
hair.
a cemetery at Gibelline, Egypt, with his
Okay,
whole
let's go back just before that and show you where they exodus out of Egypt up into
were
north.
believed to have begun abandoning the increasingly warm country and headed to the cooler climates of Europe. Then, after about 1500 BC,
Yeah, so what he's saying here is that it looks like all the Egyptians, just like a lot of people have come up with the idea, left Egypt whenever it started going to shit and becoming drought and went north. And that's probably the Greeks and the Romans and all the other Caucasoids that you see up through there because it was a more fertile land and cooler. Once the ice age went away and the ice shelves receded away, instead of being the center or the equator being the best place for people to live, it spread out farther and the middle part became the desert. The Caucasians, noticing that, left. So, what's he say? Let's see what else he says.
the population in the area became increasingly mixed, with the Nubians from the south of Egypt, which explains the typical physical appearance and the genetic makeup of modern-day
So that's how they
Egyptians.
came?
This theory strongly refutes the ideas of Afrocentrism, with the present.
Yeah, it does refute the ideas of Afrocentrism. And I'm sorry if you've got some racist agenda that says that black people did everything. Look, we say that the origin of man comes out of Africa, but it doesn't mean that that man that came out of Africa was black. In fact, I think history proves that the one that stayed in Africa was black and all the other people that came out were the other colors. It's just the way history is. I mean, nobody's trying to be the devil or anything. Everyone's just trying to find the truth. I think this is amazing. I always thought they were some Arabic kind of people, and this is amazing. Thanks, Mike. Thank y'all for watching.